Why is Taylor Swift so special? How does she tie in to some of the oldest mystery religions to this day? And how do we use discernment and step away from the Hollywood music industry? All this and more on tonight's Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Welcome, everyone. We are live on the Midnight Ride tonight, and David is on vacation, so he has given me a stand-in, and I don't think they look anything alike, but from what I can tell, they both have a lot to say, so we're going to check this out. Gillyan is also the co-host of the Doctrine of Christ, the DOC. If you haven't subscribed to that channel, make sure you do that. She also has tons of followers on Instagram. She puts out these awesome short videos that just really cause people to think. And so I'm excited to have her on about this topic because, as you know, superstars are what people love to worship, guys. And we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Many mainstream companies put dangerous chemicals in their products that contribute to disease and disability. This is why it's so important that we take care in the products that we consume. The skin is the largest organ in your body, and it is the covering to your temple. Our sponsor tonight is Sugar and Spice Soap Company. They create all natural and biblically clean soaps and beauty products. They even have a soap for Midnight Ride listeners. Use coupon code NYSTV to receive 10% off all your purchases. Link in the description. If this is true, then our country is in a lot of trouble.
We would have these trips, these special trips.
But he said, my daddy takes the bodies to the grocery store and he grinds them up and puts it in the hamburger. And nobody ever knows it.
How can kids 6, 8, 10 years old be describing rituals that come from a book like the Book of the Dead? It's hard to get your mind around people being capable of this kind of evil.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much. If you liked anything you see, make sure you check out the links below. Also, I want to give a shout out to trutherfit.com. I don't know if you can see this. It keeps zooming in and out. But we have mugs right now, and you guys can get them half off right now if you use the code #TourAhead. And the code is actually in the description of this. Make sure you guys go check them out. I think our metal ones are actually cheaper than you can find, like the metal rumblers and the things on like Walmart. So it's really awesome deal. Make sure you check it out. We got tons of other stuff on there as well. And so with that being said, I want to introduce to you guys Gillyan Stone. How are you doing, Gillyan?
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to get started on this topic tonight, and I'm just so honored that you guys would have me on your platform to discuss this. I have always wanted to be on a midnight ride. This is like one of those bucket list things that I've had on my mind. Like, if I could ever do something cool, this would be it. I've been an active follower of this platform for so long, and I'm just so excited to be a part of it for once.
Very, very cool. I'm excited to have you on. I actually went on your podcast, the Alabaster podcast. When was that? That was a few months ago, and so I really enjoyed speaking with you. And I've listened to some of the stuff you guys have done with David and FOJC. So I'm really cool to have. It's cool to have you on the team. I know, like, it's so weird to be talking to all these people. It really is. I remember when I first started doing it, it was just like I was ecstatic that there was 10 people even listening to the I was like, 10 people are listening. Can you believe that? 10 people. And now it's just to see it grow. And you've seen the same kind of stuff on Instagram. You reach an even different crowd than Now You See TV. So it's really cool to have you part of the team. And this topic tonight, I know that is going to be pretty popular because the person that we're talking about is extremely popular. I mean, she is the superstar of superstars, from what I understand, at least from what I hear around the gym. The kids, kids are always talking about. So tell me about this, because I did not watch the podcast that you and David did on Taylor Swift. However, I can't help but notice a lot of similarities and a lot of weird things going on with her life, and just obviously almost all superstars are super occult in what they do, that you look at their music videos and such. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that I really don't even know what to say about it other than this lady she looks like an ancient witch. She looks like somebody I've seen before. So
yeah. So where do I begin? Okay, so as far as your question goes, there are a lot of conspiracy theories based around Taylor Swift, who she's descended from. And I think we get into that a little bit in this presentation. But I presented this on FOJC radio, I want to say a couple months ago, when she had just released her first post. It was after, I believe, the Grammys, where she was talking about the announcement of her brand new album, The Tortured Poets Department. And so with that, she posted something around that time, about a week later, with a poem that she had written that was very interesting to me, and nobody was talking about it. And it was just so crazy because there was so much symbolism in it. And so I wanted to decode this, because I truly believe that she is trying to relay a message to us, talking about what's really going on with why she's so successful. Basically talking about her iniquities in her genealogy bloodline, and really just talking about the witchcraft aspect of it all, because she literally mentions black goo in this post that she posts about. I believe she uses black ink specifically, but it's all very, very interesting. And so I'm excited to get started and to really talk about all of this. Well,
Gillyan, take us on the ride. I've got my coffee ready. I've got the Harley stoked up, ready to roll, and so I'm ready to hear it. I'm excited because I read a book one time by Bernays, I believe, who wrote it. Maybe it wasn't Bernays, but he did work at Tavistock, and it was titled "Why Otherwise Reasonable People Worship Celebrities." I believe that's the title. Because I couldn't understand it. I don't understand it. I really, really don't. I've never been one to be like, oh man, this guy's famous, because I do know that with all of that they have going on, like the stuff that they have to do to get there, I realize that, to me, like, I feel sorry for them more than anything. I really, really do. And not all of them. I know some of them are born into it and then they become a generational person involved in that group. But it's just so disheartening to even look at these things and see how so many people worship them. So I'm excited to hear it. Let's roll. Let's do it.
Amazing. Well, I wanted to start this off because, biblically at least, because I know a lot of you, this is a very controversial topic. And when we talk about celebrities, I mean, like you said, they've obviously done something to get to where they are today. And there are a lot of people who don't want us to talk about this. They don't want us to expose this because they believe that it's not right. But I wanted to pull up Ephesians 6:10 through 20 with you guys. And it says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles
of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. And above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. And for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in bonds, that therein I may speak boldly as I ought to speak. So this passage is so powerful to me because it's literally talking to you about how we are in this spiritual battle and how we must put on our armor and we must fight back against these principalities and against these powers and rulers of darkness. And I like to call them the dark courts whenever I talk about them, because it's so true. There are so many levels of evil. And I really believe that Taylor Swift is a major part of this dark kingdom, honestly.
I think so too. I noticed something, how a lot of them they'll do, and this is just for purposes to show, but they do this symbolism, and it really reminds me of the priests in the Bible. They would do this, and when they would give the Aaronic blessing, they would do this symbol, which is kind of like the Spock symbol, and it reminds me of like a twisted version of the priests of Satan. The Bible talks about the synagogue of Satan, and I mean, it's no surprise that. Well, I'm not going to get into that, but it's interesting that these symbolisms are similar. Like you said, they are the high courts of the dark side, and they have their priests, and I believe Hollywood is, and not just Hollywood, but anywhere the show, like when you're talking about like movie stars and even music stars, not all of them, but a lot of them, I think have signed something to where it's like they have to embody this propaganda for the dark side. They have to, like, they don't have really a choice if they want to keep going or if they want to continue being successful. And even then, I don't even know that they have a chance to get out with all this stuff coming out with Cat Williams talking about P. Diddy and just P. Diddy in general. They raided his house and all of the stuff that's going on with that. Is finally being exposed. Obviously, it's been going on for a long time, and people have been talking about it. People have been warning people about it. I don't know how many times I've told people that I know, like, do not go and do this. Don't do this. I even have friends that have been to Hollywood and left and ran as far as they could, and crazy stories that I could tell you. But it's amazing to how much people really just lift these people up. So.
No, yeah, it's absolutely insane for sure. And I think that we can start on I guess, this first way that we fight back. And I think that one of the biggest ways that we can really take back our world is by understanding the way that the dark courts communicate. And one of the biggest ways that they communicate is using a system called gematria. And gematria is a system database of words converted to numbers that are added to create a sum. And this system is literally how they all communicate, name themselves and children, and pass along predictive programming without the masses knowing. But there are a few like us who do know. And so here's some examples, like 9/11. was one of them. And there's a bunch of predictive programming, gematria around that day. I bet all of you guys know the conspiracy theories about 9/11, and the predictive programming is pretty crazy. Or even 2/22 in the occult is a big, big day for them. And for a name, Beyonce is 33 in gematria, and Taylor Swift's gematria number is 66.
So that one's really, really interesting to me because in Revelation 13:18, it labels 666 as the devil's number. And it says here in Revelation 13:18, here is the wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Okay, so when you kind of unpack that, it's the number of a man. So if you take into account the way that these people communicate and their number is 666, that's should stand out to you as something to really note here.
I mean, definitely should note that. I think anytime that I mean, obviously she probably picked her name. I don't know. Is this her real name, Taylor Swift, or is this something
I
that
honestly, I think it may be a stage name, but I haven't looked up her actual real name at all.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder because a lot of, like I said, a lot of these people pick their names, and so if the gematria, they definitely follow the gematria of things, and the zodiac. It's every rich person that I know, that I'm talking rich. I'm not talking like millionaires rich, but I'm talking plus millionaire, hundreds of millions of dollars. They are doing every move that they make based off of gematria and the zodiac. Like that is 100% a fact. And anybody that knows any multi-millionaires, we're talking $100+ million, they use this stuff. And almost all of them, I can't say all of them because I haven't met them all, but I'm telling you, like, this is a huge part of their life. Everything that they do is based off of these stars, just like in the book of Daniel. You have these magi. You have magi that are doing everything based off the stars. They're advising the king based off the stars. You even have in the scripture a story of spiritual warfare based off of these signs and predictions. The Bible says when it destroys Babylon, can your sorcerers save you? Did they tell you? Did they warn you of this that's coming? And so this is huge in all major religions of the world, but it's also especially when it comes to the synagogue of Satan, people who are literally purposefully corrupting the world that we live in. So yeah, it's definitely significant, I think, especially if they chose their name. That's really significant.
Oh yeah, it all works for a very dark purpose for sure. And when we move on to, you'll find that it gets even deeper than this, because the Tortured Poets Department Taylor Swift released her Tortured Poets Department album on April 19th, which I don't know if you know this, but it is the first day of the Feast of the Beast for Moloch. And it's a 13-day cycle of preparation. And the 19th, the first one, is actually a fire sacrifice. And there are a ton of different happenings on April 19th that revolve around fire and revolve around just mass sacrifice. And so it was very interesting that she picked April 19th for this Tortured Poets Department to air. And it's interesting because to note that April 19th is, the Feast of Moloch, where you're literally sacrificing and torturing children. And her title, it's literally in the title of her album, it's the Tortured Poets Department. So it's very, very different to really think about here. It's interesting, to say the least.
I would say too, like a lot, I guess, I've been really researching lately just the whole religion of these Nephilim kings, these Nephilim bloodlines, and Moloch is huge. Moloch means king, MLK. This was found in the Ugaritic text or Ugaritic text. It was found in all of their worship. This king, they would sacrifice their children to him. So MLK, when I say MLK, I'm not talking Martin Luther King. Maybe that's why he chose his name too. I have no idea.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
But that's exactly what it's marked as in the Ugaritic text, MLK. And this is where we get our Moloch. But these kings who would be Nephilim kings, who they believed that they embodied the spirit of the Messiah, their Messiah, and they would be born, people would literally send their children through fire to this. And it's weird. I've been really researching this stuff, and it has to do with some kind of weird reincarnation thing that they believe that when they sacrifice these children through the fire, that these children are now born into the next life without the knowledge of the former life, and therefore they're able to be used in the army of the Nephilim Messiah. It's really crazy, man. It's like I've been wondering, like, do they believe this now? Do they believe that all of these children that they are aborted, they're going to be able to use in the next life? And looking at like some of the etymology of words such as infantry, and stuff like that, there's these weird correlations that this might be true, but that's definitely part of the Nephilim King bloodline Messiah religion. Like, it's just has all the markings of it. It's pretty intense, pretty crazy.
No, absolutely. And you're actually really on track with what I'm about to say next, because it really has everything to do with the reincarnation theology that they really believe. And I want to talk about something that is very tied into the mystery religions. The last really known documentation of it was actually in the Library of Alexandria, and as you know, it was completely destroyed. And we're going to be talking about theurgy and what that is. And theurgy is a power higher than all human wisdom, embracing the blessings of divination and the purifying powers of initiation, and in a word, all operations of divine possession. And to kind of go on with more of a definition of it, it is a very dark magic, and it is known to them as the occult as divine magic. And it's one of the two major branches of the magical arts, and the other being practical magic or thaumaturgy. And theurgy describes the ritual practices associated with the invocation or evocation of a presence of one or more deities, called god forms, especially with the goal of achieving henosis, which is uniting with the divine and perfecting oneself. So in a way, like, you were totally like ahead of me here. It's pretty incredible to see what they truly believe in.
Reincarnation and the serpent biting its own tail, and this age, every age, because they believe that people are reincarnated every age, but they also believe that if you are killed before the age of accountability, I believe it might even be younger than that, but if you're killed before that age, you have an opportunity for your spirit to jump into another
Mhm.
body. But they believe that people who have been alive that haven't been murdered before as a baby, they could remember their past lives, but these babies will not be able to remember their past lives and can be used in a better way. It's so strange the way that they
Yeah.
believe, but there's obviously, I don't know if every one of them believes this, but this is kind of the underlying worship of MLK, their Moloch, that really stands out to me. I mean, it's crazy that they have these divine magic rituals that most people don't believe that they work, though most people don't believe that it's true. But when we're talking about soul thieves and people who steal souls and literally reuse these souls, I believe that they use them, and or that they body snatch and inhabit people using these, it, I guess I would say, enslaved souls. And I wonder, and I'm not trying to get ahead of you. I hope I'm not. If I am, just tell me to shut up for a
No,
second.
you're good.
But when you look at the Nephilim in the Bible, and in the book of Enoch, it says that because they were born of gods and sons of gods and the daughters of men, that their spirits would be an evil spirit roaming the earth forever, working against mankind. And I can't help but wonder if these people, when they get to Hollywood or they get to that level of fame or money, that obviously requires a toll. There's always a toll, right? For every level, another devil type thing. You got these higher tolls you got to pay. And I would imagine that when they get to that level and they basically offer their soul up as a contract, that they are they're seeing proof that this is real. Yeah, we did an episode about this one girl was talking about the gold juice, and I think she's probably crazy, maybe, or she's not. She's
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
I know
something,
who
but
you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So like you have that, and these people believe maybe because of these ancient entities that their spirits are literally going to keep going because they can
Hmm.
maybe hear from these entities. Like this entity spoke to me. This entity was alive before. They told me all about these different things. I know that this to be true, but you have to wonder, are these magic rituals literally changing their DNA and causing them to become these Nephilim that are roaming the earth, and that's how they can continue kind of jumping into these bodies and keep going. I don't know. There's a lot of theories there, but I'll stop it at that because I know I'm probably impeding
No, you're
your
fine.
presentation. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely fine. I love the commentary, and it's really at the end of the day all about a conversation about, how to distance yourself from the dark world, really. And I think that to go even further, the reason why we're talking about theurgy, why I'm talking about it a little bit in depth here is because in order to decode what Taylor Swift's post was that she made, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here. And this is exactly it. And it's funny that you were talking about the origins of this reincarnation, because I was doing a lot of research, and this theurgy ritual is literally derived from demiurge. And I know that you guys have talked about demiurge a few different times, but if people do not know who demiurge is, he is what the pagans believe to be the corrupt or really evil version of Jehovah God, our God. And in order to appease him, the elite families would offer themselves and their children up for him to possess a vessel to maintain a physical rule of the land. And there are so many different examples of this happening throughout history. Cleopatra was one of those examples of a fallen angel literally possessing her. She literally claimed to be the reincarnation of Isis, you guys. And she ruled over the land up until about 30 something years, 30 plus, maybe 40 years before Jesus was born. And she literally was possessed by this fallen angel, Isis, to rule over the land. And I mean, it's really, really crazy. And you think about Taylor, or not Taylor Swift, Cleopatra's father believed he was Dionysus, which is basically Apollo, or the Antichrist, basically the Antichrist Osiris figure that you see. And a lot of the it's interesting to see how the mystery religions are kind of immersed into each other. Like you can't really tell exactly where they all kind of originated from, but they all the aspects of these religions, they get it from so many different just cultures, and they all kind of mesh together. And in the instance of Egypt, it really was combined a lot with the Roman and Greek kind of mythology, and you can see that with the demiurge and all of that, because you see the same symbols across so many different cultures and for the same exact meanings as well. So we're going to be talking about that because where I lead this, you guys, I mean, a regular closed-minded person would look at this and say you are absolutely crazy. But those of you who have that discernment from the Lord and really want to understand further how Taylor Swift is able to literally brainwash an entire generation to follow her, and vote with her and do all of this crazy stuff in our country. We need to really understand this. And I think that people who are more open-minded are going to be able to understand why that is. And so unless you have something else to add, John, let's dive into the post because
Let's do it.
okay, amazing. So I'm going to read this out loud to you guys, but I do want to say I do believe that this is a witchcraft chant. So I will give a strong rebuke in the name of Jesus at what we're going to be diving into. This is not good. I do not support this. I do not believe in any of this, but in order to know our enemy, we must understand what they believe to further fight for the souls of this nation and for this world. So let me just start by reading it, and let's take a deep dive into what all of this entails. So I enter into evidence my tarnished coat of arms, my muses acquired like bruises, my talisman and charms, the tick, tick, tick of love bombs, my veins of pitch black ink, all's fair in love and poetry. Sincerely, the chairman of the Tortured Poets Department. That's the post that we're going to be looking at today. What do you think, John?
Man, all I can say is that sounds creepy. Is like, I guess like people will probably look at this just like I did when I was a kid. I looked at like bands like Metallica, even
Mhm.
like Marilyn Manson and Ozzy Osbourne and all of these different crazy shock rock, I guess is what they called it, groups. I looked at it as these guys are putting on a show. Like they're trying to shock people and they're doing this. And I was naive. I was stupid. But that's what most people's mindset is on this, right? They're saying, "Oh, she's just trying to shock people. It's cool to be goth. It's cool to be magic nowadays. You know, Harry Potter, everything's cool." And they don't really think about like these words actually mean something. These words are telling a true story here. They're telling a story of what it means to be a muse. Like a muse, people don't understand what a muse is,
Mhm.
but a muse is someone who delivers these words, you know, right? I think the muses were the 7 daughters
Mhm.
of Hercules or something like that.
They
Maybe it was
were,
Zeus, but
yeah, Zeus. Yeah.
Zeus, yeah, the 7 daughters of Zeus. So you have these muses, which this is where you get the word museum, etc. But they are being acquired. Would it say with bruises? Is that what it said?
She said that her muses were acquired like bruises.
Acquired like bruises. So like
Mhm.
beat onto her. Interesting.
Beat
I
into
don't.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot there. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if now Taylor Swift, I don't know enough about her yet. I'm learning more and more as you speak. Um, but she for her to know the stuff that you're talking about, the worship of the dying god and the Nephilim kings, Moloch and stuff like that. For her to know that, in my mind, not either she's an avid researcher, or she is a high priestess in
Right.
the order of Dionysus, or you know, order of
Right.
one of these, like you said, they're different names. It depends. If you go all the way back, you're going to see Enlil and Enki. You shoot
Right.
forward, you're going to
Right.
see Marduk. You know, you shoot
Right.
forward further than that, you'll see Baal, and then you'll see, you know, like the same name, different people, but
Yeah.
she has to be involved in this in some kind of way. That's what I'm thinking. That's you're asking what I thought. That's what I think.
Oh yeah, and I mean, just to add on to that too, before I continue with the first line of this poem that we're going to decode, the amount of research that you and me have put into understanding this. Do you know how much time that takes? So for Taylor Swift to really be like posting things like this, I mean, the amount of knowledge that we have on this subject, she actually lives it out. So can you imagine the amount of dark wisdom and dark knowledge that she has, that she is able to really um artistically and just under everyone's nose put this stuff out. I mean,
Mhm.
there's no way that she can't be a part of it personally, because
Yeah.
she writes all of her music, right? So it's pretty interesting to me just how dark this gets. So I want to start off with her first line, and it says, "So I enter into evidence." And that is a direct invocation of something dark right there. I enter into evidence. And she first starts off with her tarnished coat of arms. She says, "So I enter into evidence my tarnished coat of arms." So that's the first line we're going to be working with here. My first instinct was, why is her coat of arms tarnished? And to tarnish is to destroy, to ruin. And so she has to be talking about her bloodline here. And that's where a lot of conspiracy theories open up. But I'm going to go all the way back to her family crest. And she is the descendant of Thomas Mayhew, and he was actually the founder of Martha's Vineyard. So I want to this I'm speechless here because it's so incredibly crazy. Her Mayhew family crest, and it is literally a crest with a knight's head. And you know that if you have a knight's helmet on anything, it means like the faceless handler, basically, the faceless ruler. So that dates back to a secret society immediately. When you see anything that's like a headless knight, that means that you have someone who is in control of you, but they are way too up on the pyramid for you to know who they are. And I compared it to the sigil of Baal because it's interesting to see these little, the four corners of like the black, and then you have the three little leaves going off each one. It's the same type of thing going around here. And you see this weird triangle looking thing, as well as like the triangle type star thing. And you see a star right here along with three ravens. And I think it's very interesting. And you also see the star, the pentagram. So it's clear to me that this family crest symbolizes some sort of witchcraft family tree here. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is the muses acquired like bruises. You think about demonic possession. There are so many instances of demonic possession, what it does to the host, right? You're getting beaten around. Like, you've seen the horror movies, and I'm sure that a lot of you have seen those horror movies of those possessed people and these demonic entities throwing them across the walls, punching them, scratching them, hitting them, etc. And all of this happens during demonic possession, right? And even you see like I forget exactly which verse it was that Jesus literally delivered that man from the legion of demons, and he was completely just battered and bruised as well, set off to I believe it was exile, right? And it's pretty crazy to see that sort of verbiage for that, because she acquired them. And what does that mean to acquire? To acquire, it means to have on hand, to accept, to literally put on. I used to play video games, and one of them was like the Legend of Zelda, and you would be able to acquire a bag, acquire a piece of food, and so you would have it and immediately like ingest it or put it on you. So this is all like she is acquiring the muses. And this is where it takes a very interesting turn, because we're going to be talking about the muses of Apollo. And it is it, it is so incredible. Do you have anything to add or anything before I go on?
I think just with I'm in my mind, I'm totally picturing these contracts that these artists have, like P. Diddy, when he signs people, he's acquiring muses, and he's also controlling them. But I can't help but think she's talking about that, like the art of acquiring it. I don't know. I'm interested to hear. I don't have any preconceived thoughts on it other than that. Like, I just can't help but think she's part of the contract maker. She's one of the contract makers. So
Oh, absolutely. And this takes a very interesting turn, because did you know that the muses are the mothers of sirens, right?
right. Yeah,
So
yeah, the muses were so the muses were, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, they were your daughters of Apollo, or is it what you're saying, or
they
daughters of
were
Zeus? I can't.
they were lovers of Apollo. Like, all of
Okay.
them were in love with Apollo. And this is where we're gonna get in here, because Taylor Swift is always talking about the love of one man, this man that treats her terribly, this man that ignores her, this man that makes her feel depressed. And then all of a sudden she loves him and loves him. And he's the best thing that's ever happened to her. And how she wishes that she could love something that belongs to somebody else. It's so interesting to see the way that I believe Taylor Swift is talking about her love of Apollo, the love of Moloch, the love of Baal. It's a very interesting thing. And I know that a lot of you may um think that it sounds crazy, but if you just stay with me, it gets a little bit further, and it's pretty interesting.
So interestingly, what I want one thing that I find interesting about this. So I was just reading a little bit, but the Muses were the seven daughters of Zeus, and they, I guess they, like you said, they fell in love with Apollo. And in Greek mythology, I believe Zeus, those where the Muses come from. But I think that Apollo, I mean, is obviously the Nephilim king. He's the Antichrist. I guess according to biblical theology. So she's acquiring these muses. So what does that mean? She's pimping them out?
No,
I
I
don't know.
believe so. Here's where the theurgy aspect comes in here. I believe that Taylor Swift underwent a theurgy ritual to become rich and famous, to literally invoke all of these fallen angels, all of these seven muses inside of her, to give her the most luring, the most persuasive, and the most enchanting music platform that has ever been in existence. Um,
And
and
tell me this real quick, because I do not follow mainstream music. I know she's popular. I know that because I see kids with their shirts all the time, or whatever, just anything they can do. She was a big part of the Super Bowl, just a famous person. But you're way younger than me. You're young enough that you could be my daughter. And so in your opinion, this woman is one of the most famous artists to have ever
oh
existed.
yeah,
Is that correct?
to give you a brief kind of comparison, two, they or three, I guess, they compare her to three different people. The first is Elvis, the second is Michael Jackson, and the third is Alexander the Great. They literally compare
Wow.
her to Alexander the Great. And we're going to get into this next line of her post where she mentions her talisman and charms. Did you know that Alexander the Great and Aristotle explored a variety of instructions on how to harness spiritual forces through talisman, and more that are each designed for that theurgy purpose?
Wow. Yeah, I mean I would definitely not doubt it. Let's put it that way. I haven't ever looked into their practices, but I know Alexander the Great was a lot of people would say was one of the
Hercules, they
yeah,
compare him
yeah.
to Hercules. What's interesting too is, this is totally off topic, but you could even compare him to the way that Baron Trump looks. They look like, if you take a
Oh
side by
wow.
side comparison of Hercules slash Alexander the Great, like the coins, and you put it up to the side comparison of Baron Trump, it's very weird. Very,
Oh,
very weird.
I can imagine like Baron Trump. Have you read the time traveling book,
Yeah.
Baron?
I've seen all of
Man,
the, yeah, it's crazy. It's just like, and more examples on top of examples on how elites do this, and how they literally are out to um quite seriously invoke any antichrist that they possibly can. And Taylor Swift is currently right now working to make the antichrist into her lover, and she's trying to make all of these women, all of these men, all of these kids adore and worship Apollo the Antichrist, because she's in love with him. So her job, in my opinion, is to make him look desirable. And I just have a feeling that she's going to be working with him in some sort of way that is romantic when the time comes.
you're talking about Baron Trump. You think she's gonna be like literally? Is that who you're talking about, or Apollo in general?
Apollo in general, but
Okay.
I mean, you
That
never
would be
know.
crazy. You heard it here first. If that happens, that would be
Right.
nuts.
You never know at this point. It's pretty crazy what these people are willing to do. And like I said, she is literally claimed by the media to be the Alexander the Great of this music industry, because of how ambitious she is. And to go down
I
further,
didn't know that. That's something I did not know. I realized that she was popular. I had no idea that she was that
yeah,
popular.
yeah, I mean, it surprises me sometimes on how popular she is. I mean, I used to listen to her when I was little, but I never really was so obsessed to where like I couldn't do anything without listening to Taylor Swift. But there are people out there that I know personally that literally sit there and like cannot function without listening to her music, like cannot do anything without checking what she says or anything like that. I think people are so just enchanted by her, quite literally. And she has a song called Enchanted. And it's just so it's very weird, to say the least. It's a magic spell. Like it can't be anything but a magic spell. And I
It
think,
has to be, because I see nothing desirable
I mean,
at
same.
all about the way she looks or the way she sounds. Like there's nothing at all. So it must be an incantation of some sort, because I just don't get it.
Brutal, but true. Let's look into her next line, because we're talking about witchcraft, which I think that we can get really good in here. She talks about her veins of pitch black ink. And oh, it's crazy. Pi- Having veins of pitch black ink is quite literally black magic. That you cannot be practicing anything but black magic if you are talking about having black veins. And there are a lot of different examples of this. And I mean, it often revolves around blood magic as well. And I used to watch this show back when I was before I was convicted of, just rebuking the show. It was called The Vampire Diaries. And one of the instances of pitch black veins was when the leading witch in the show, she was taught a new form of magic called expression. And it was a blood magic that literally required her to sacrifice like 13 bodies at a time to be able to harness enough power to do what she wanted to do. So she literally would invoke this expression magic, and her entire body, all of the veins in her body would turn black, and like her eyes would turn black. It was this really creepy thing. And I always wondered about it, because what significance is that? And does that really happen? Well, it turns out, yes, it does, because black goo was actually discovered on the first prophet of Amun-Ra's tomb. And do not ask me to pronounce his name, because it would not go over well. It's like Dejed Konsiu F Ankh, I think that's how you pronounce it, but I could not, like, I couldn't tell you.
Close enough. Close enough. I think
Okay.
you might have done better than David would do on the pronunciation. I
I have no idea. All I'm sure of is the Ankh thing, because that's a real symbol. But basically, with this black goo, when someone died, they were said to become a form of the god Osiris, like you said earlier, John, who is associated with the death and rebirth. Osiris is called the Black One in various funerary texts, I'm sorry, and is often depicted with black skin and in the guise of a mummified body. Black is also the color associated with alluvial slit deposited on the banks of the River Nile after the annual flood receded. Since this fresh and fertile soil provided the ideal environment for sorry, I lost my place, an environment in which seeds for crops could germinate and grow, it was viewed as being inherently magical and regenerative, because it was so it was just so fertile, like what was growing there, the amount of nutrients. So people associated this Black Nile like sludge with it was because they had correctly worshipped Osiris. And so they started literally rubbing it all on elitist tombs, etc., to try to raise them from the dead, basically, to regenerate them and for them to ascend. But not everyone got the goo treatment, though. Evidence suggests that it was likely to have been reserved for the social elites, like I said, and some of the earliest examples were from royal burials. So I'm trying to pronounce his name, but I believe it's Tutankhamun, his gold coffin was cemented in the middle coffin, in the picture that I'm showing here. And it was literally covered in black goo. And the black goo was also available to non-royals, but the family had to be able to afford the treatment. It was very expensive to do it. And just some, do you have anything to add on the black goo
I think
before I?
it's really interesting because, just a lot of things like I've actually experienced a situation where I was talking to somebody and their eyes turned black. Um, as I was telling them
Okay.
well, yeah, I mean, it was what I was telling them because we were doing some kind of, and I don't want to say too much about it because just because it was a long time ago. There's a lot of things were going on at the time, but we were going and we were going and shooting this documentary, and this documentary exposed some really crazy stuff. In fact, um, Senator Nancy Schaefer, she was one of the people backing this movement, and in the course of this documentary, she's had murder suicide with her husband. She had been filming children in Texas that have been in CPS care or foster home care that were living in cages, and she'd
Oh
been
my
exposing that
gosh.
they've been giving children to hardcore criminals on purpose or like without giving background checks and
Oh,
everything. And this is a, mind you, multi-million dollar business. Children
yeah.
is a multi-million dollar business. So,
Billion
anyways, the guy,
probably. Yeah.
yeah, billion probably. Who knows? It's the most lucrative business in the world. So, um, we're doing this documentary, and a guy that I'm working on this documentary with like freaks out. He's like, "We can't do this. We can't do this." Where he's like, "You're this goes all the way up to the top. This goes every, like just fear, just afraid as all get out." And I said, "I don't know why you're worried, man." I was like, "God, I was like, Jesus is more powerful than any of these people." And like his eyes turned black, and like the room went dark. It was really, really creepy. But um, I think that there's definitely something to that. I don't know what to think of that. And you remember hearing about the black-eyed children that were showing up, and whether
Yeah.
that's true or not, I have no idea. But
Yeah.
I don't know what this means. But I think that maybe it's an ability, like there's something about real full demonic possession. I'm not talking about just possession to where a person's acting like an animal from time to time and slam their head
Yeah.
in the wall. I'm talking about a full possession of a person where you would never know that they're possessed because that's who they are. Like whatever's
It's
inside of
insane.
them is who they are. And I think that I was dealing with this type of thing with this experience that I had. It was a perfect possession, not just it's trying to take control of your mind. It's not like some kind of chimera demon that doesn't know how to distinguish civilized behavior versus non-civilized behavior. This was something deeper. So, and that's a whole nother
Mm.
topic. But I just thought, I'd mention that.
That could be a good midnight ride. Yeah, that's absolutely insane. And off the record too, um, here's maybe some research for you to do is linking black-eyed children to the Amalekite tribe in First Samuel. And I believe, yeah, it's First and Second Samuel that they're mentioned, but they're
Really,
yeah, they're known to shapeshift into animals as well as children. And so that might be something that you may want to look.
I saw a video you made on Instagram actually
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I it's pretty interesting for sure, but
I was just
um
thinking, where did I hear that before? Oh yeah, your video on Instagram.
right, right. I love talking about everything biblical theory. It's absolutely incredible and really helps me.
Yeah,
It just changes my paradigm every time and helps me look at the world in a more I would say more close to God lens as far as why he does things that he does.
and
And
things make sense a little bit better. Why are things so jacked up? Oh, this because of this. Like
yeah.
this goes way back. Yeah,
True, true. Yeah, but to go back to I guess wrapping up the whole Taylor Swift thing, I think one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about too is um the amount of snake symbolism that she has currently in everything that she does. Her whole Reputation album was literally a snake. And you have like that serpent worship slash like Apollo energy you have there. And I read that Apollo was actually connected to snake worship, and he often appears in the company of muses. In he appears, sorry, with his I guess he said that he had sacred animals, and it included a roe deer, swan, cicada, hawk, raven, crow, fox, mice, and snakes. And apparently Apollo had killed Python in Greek mythology, that uh was killed by Apollo at Delphi, is what it says. And
Yeah. Yeah, like the oracles of Delphi, like
right,
there's a lot of interesting stuff dealing with Apollo on that. But when you talk about the serpent, it's reminiscent of they were all of these entities, whatever level they were at. I think in the Ugaritic text is the first mention of the shining ones, and they were called
right,
Rephaim. Rephaim were like shining ones, and they had now I wouldn't say it's the first mention, but other than the Bible, obviously the Bible mentions Hallel bin
yeah,
Shahar,
yeah,
the shining one. But these shining ones, they would appear like there was levels to these shining ones. In the Ugaritic text there was the Lama, which was literally divine. And then there were two more levels. I cannot remember what they were called, but there was one that was like a second level kind of demon. So we were talking like Nephilim spirit, and then
right,
there was another that was more like a chimeric, animalistic type spirit, the one you often see inhabiting people that make them act like wild animals type thing.
right.
And the oracles of Delphi, um, Apollo would visit there from Hyperborea. He would go and he would visit this place. It's pretty interesting story. Just throwing that out there. If anybody that hasn't um, researched what you're talking about here, this makes so much sense when you see it played out with, like, I don't know, people like well, we're talking about Taylor Swift. So like you see this whole mythology being told another way, I guess you could call it. Even Disney does it. They tell this
Oh yeah.
mythology
Hmm.
15 different ways. It's pretty amazing.
Oh no, you're so right. And I think to kind of just finish off is um I mean, there's a lot of information here for sure. And I know a lot of you may be having to watch this back and take notes, right? Because I mean, it took me quite a long time of research to figure all of this out little by little. And even months in advance, you kind of learn more things that make sense along the way as well with your research that you may not have been able to see from a different lens while currently in. But I think one of the biggest things is understanding that Taylor Swift's music is very luring and it's very enticing. And I think the biggest standout is that her music, as far as now this new album, caters towards those who have weak spirits. And what I mean by that is depression, anxiety, sadness, maybe going through traumas. This particular album was made to lure you in if you are one of those people who has any of those.
So
And
like 100% of the people in the world almost, right?
right. And she wants you to relate to this, right? She wants you to be drawn in by this music. And it reminds me of the siren call, really, because at the end of the day, she's not giving you anything. She's validating your feelings and allowing you to sit in that depression. And I want to remind you guys of what happened to the disciples when they let their grief of what happened to Jesus consume them. What happened? They fell asleep. They were asleep while Jesus was in his final moments with them. They could not handle it. They couldn't spiritually equip themselves. They fell asleep. And what I'm trying to tell you guys is that you cannot fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Don't pay attention to this, because as luring as it is, I mean, I mean, as someone who grew up with Taylor Swift, right? There's so many parts of me that say, "Oh, but I remember singing in the car with my mom." Those times you don't know what you do now. Part is now is that you know better. And now that you know better, why are you allowing yourself to fall asleep? You can't do that. You can't. There's so much more. There's so much more joy outside of Taylor Swift. And I don't even need to name a few. I'm sure you can think of one right now. But in First Peter chapter 5, verse 8, it says to be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Taylor Swift is trying to do that to you. She's trying to keep you depressed. She's trying to keep you anxious. And she's trying to continue to make you go through previous traumas with her music because you can relate to them. There's a difference between being able to relate and manipulating you into not changing. God wants you to be always changing. He's always changing you with the things that he teaches you. Satan doesn't want you to change. And neither does Taylor Swift. She wants you to stay right there because she needs you. She needs you to have that power. And that's kind of just the ending point of what I want to say, because like me, I'm 22. I'm still, I guess, in that generation that is, I'm the, I guess, in between of a Gen Z and a millennial type thing. But like so many kids like my age, they're not where I'm at. And as that's okay, I was built different to really recognize these things and to be I mean, it was a blessing and a curse to my parents, but I was always an authority tester growing up. And so many people younger than me, the same age as me, and older than me as well, they have issues with not questioning the authority. Why would you want to follow someone who is dark, who posts dark things, morbid things in her writings and in her lyrics? I haven't even I'm not going to listen to her music, but I've only heard that there's a bunch of blasphemies calling herself God and cursing out the Bible in her full on album. And it's sick, absolutely sick. And why would you want to follow someone like that when you know that your Lord is Jesus and you should be defending him? Because if I'm not mistaken, Jesus defended you and he died for you. And we need to be doing at least the bare minimum and stop supporting people who spit on Jesus. And I guess that's all I have to say about that one.
Yeah, that's thank you for saying that. I think that hopefully there's other people out there that are listening to this that are your, especially in your position, your age, even younger, just like can see that these people are basically baiting a trap when they set up whatever they set before you. I remember when I was younger, it was depends on what your music you're into, but country music was basically, in my opinion, a psyop to get everybody drinking and sleeping
No, it's so
around.
true. Yeah.
And then hip hop was basically a psyop to destroy um, a whole generation of people that grew up. And I mean, because if you do everything they talk about on those videos or even idolize what they do and find yourself in those situations, there's no cash money, big money, rising to the top, sitting on jets. There's a place in a prison cell for you. And if you do make it that far to where you're riding on jets and stuff like that, you're also got some Diddy at the top controlling you. You've got something weird going on, some diddling going on. And so it's a trap, it's like they set the cheese there, boom, there it is. And like you said, like she's making it okay to curse the Bible, to do magic, to do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you guys really know anybody that does magic that tries to be like these people, but their lives are not very they're not very, I don't know what the good word for today's youth is. Their lives are not great.
No,
Most of the people that you see doing magic and stuff like that, their lives are in a
they, it,
wretched state.
yeah, their lives suck. Let's just put it bluntly.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Now, one more thing I wanted to ask you. I don't know if you've
Mm-hmm.
entertained this or saw this picture, but there's a picture of Taylor Swift And then there's a picture of the LeVay girl, the
Xena
Anton
LaVey.
Zena LeVay, and they look almost identical. Like if I were to say, like if I were looking for a missing person or wanted poster or whatever, I would say this is the same person. This has got to be the same person. Obviously, different generations, different time periods, but knowing what we know right now about how people can prolong their youth, they can prolong the way they look based off of using sacrifices of some
Mhm.
sort, like children or whatever. At least that's what they're saying, or blood, that they're able to, prolong their longevity. What do you think about that? Like in
Oh
your
yeah. This embarks me on something I was gonna share as the last statement, but it's it's even a better closer. So I personally I've heard about the Taylor Swift conspiracy theory with Xena LeVay. You can actually still find Xena today. She has like an Instagram, everything. You can check out what she's into and all of that. And it's not good stuff at all. But I haven't actually personally looked into like the uh kind of like the leading like evidence behind it to suggest that she is actually Taylor Swift's mother. But what I have done research on is where the satanic church has literally led the music industry by literally saying that there are some backing tracks that you could be listening to that literally have the frequencies to make you, knowing or not, participate in a satanic ritual. And how you have to be so careful about what you listen to. And one example that I had was in First Samuel chapter 16, verse 23. To give you some context, Saul completely just disobeyed God, completely disobeyed him. And so because of that, God allowed an evil spirit to persecute Saul. And this harmful spirit, it says in 1 Samuel 16:23, and whenever the harmful spirit from God was upon Saul, David took the lyre, which is the harp, and played it with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and all was well, and the harmful spirit departed from him. That David's playing for the Lord, how incredibly glorifying it was to the Lord. It made this evil spirit go away. The same thing happens when you listen to the wrong stuff. You get evil spirits coming towards you. It works both ways. And as far as the conspiracy theories go, I would totally be willing to look further into depth on that one. I mean, we've seen that along this journey, you've seen that her whole coat of arms is quite literally rooted in witchcraft. So, and you see that Apollo is directly associated with the raven and the snake, which is literally in Taylor Swift's coat of arms, the raven is. And so, I mean, as far as that goes, I really am open-minded to that because there's so many aspects that you could look at as far as Taylor Swift's stature, her power, her influence on today's generation. I really wouldn't be surprised if she was actually related to the LeVay family.
I mean, you have to wonder because I think that and maybe she's not. It doesn't really, in the whole scheme of things, it doesn't matter that much. But just looking at what they're capable of cloning, supposedly cloning
Oh
humans,
yeah.
which I know they've cloned a sheep before. So I would imagine that if they can clone a sheep, they can clone a human. And I imagine that just because there might be a law in the United States or somewhere that they're not supposed to do it, I guarantee you that somebody is dumping billions of dollars into doing it. And so that's always a possibility. But like you see a lot of these artists and movie stars, they look so similar. And
Oh
of
yeah.
course there's the, what is it called, the designer babies, and so it would
Right.
make sense that even if they don't clone them, they'd be like, okay, this person obviously has the genetics for acting, or they have the genetics for being a muse, or being a
Right.
person, whatever, like they
Being
have
a
these
vessel.
genetics, right, being a vessel, so let's just keep on making this person
Right.
over and over and over again. And that could be what the headless thing is all about. It's just like
No,
it's not.
yeah. Yeah. And
They're
to the designer babies, I would encourage all of you to look into avocado farms and all of that. It's pretty interesting, the symbolism of the avocados from Mexico, kind of catchphrase and Oprah's involvement with her avocado farms, as well as to look up Epstein's Island and how they had an avocado farm on Epstein's Island. And basically, the theory is that that was a place to literally create designer babies. And so they would take celebrities like Beyonce, they would take, you know, actors, actresses, whatever, and take them to these farms and essentially take their DNA and create designer babies with vessels. And it's pretty interesting to see what goes on. The more that you look into it, it's not that far-fetched when you take all of this into account, take the mystery religions into account. And I mean, you have to take this seriously. I mean, these people from thousands of years ago, they knew what they were doing. They weren't stupid. They really weren't. They built everything that we see today. They had access to technologies that we will not see. I mean, I don't believe that we'll see it again, at least for the indefinite future. But technologies that, I mean, built the pyramids, that literally figured out how to create boats and sail thousands of miles away and be able to navigate. I mean, these people weren't stupid and they believed all of these things. So you have to really take that into account when you look at, you know, why is Gillyan saying this? Why is Jon agreeing with her? What is this whole purpose behind this video, and where does Taylor Swift tie into it, right? You really have to take into account all of these things, because if you don't, I don't know. You really have to do your research here. That's all that I would say on that one.
Yeah, because we've been naive. I mean, all of us have at some point or another. Maybe you've woken up a lot younger than I did. I mean, but we've all been naive at some point or another. We've believed the world is different than what it actually is based on what we're told. Or of course, most people don't realize this, but when you're born into this world, you're not even born free. You have to pay a toll, right? You have to pay a
Mm-hmm.
tax to the day you die. Um, on top of that, you are taught principles based off of your public school education or school education.
Mm-hmm.
You're given the idea of what you live on right off the bat. So everything you know is programmed into you from the time you're born to the time you're an adult, and
Oh yeah.
sometimes continues even after you're adult. Sometimes people allow, and we have to allow some sort of programming where we're actually like, we have to read things and do these things, but we also have to be of the, um, I guess we have to be wise. We have to be thinking, okay, is it possible that like something bad took over this system? Is it possible that the bad guys took over and now I'm trying to piece things together again to see what's right, see where the truth lies. Because it's not far-fetched to think that something bad took over the system. It's not
Mm-hmm.
far-fetched at all. In fact, it would be naive to think it hasn't, because the world we see is a perfect example of evil thriving. We see murder, we see war, we see
Yeah.
all of these diseases being released upon humanity. We see uh, extreme poverty to the point of like so poor to have nothing, living on the street, to extreme wealth to the point to where people were building bunkers worth millions and millions of
Right.
dollars and sitting on jets in Epstein Island. And
Mm-hmm.
um the extreme disparity there is just crazy. And to think that they haven't taken over the media systems. In fact, we know they have. If you actually do any amount of research, you'll see that all of the media systems are controlled by two or three people. And you'll see that all of the governments have links to a prior king of England. All of our presidents were related to a King John.
Yeah.
And you'll see that all of the kings are related to each other, and they've been passing their lineage down for generation to generation to generation. You'll see that there's a structure here. There's a power structure. Don't be naive and think that there's not. There's a power
Yeah.
structure. And once you see that, it's a little easier to see the wizard behind the curtain over in the land of Oz, because that's we're looking you're looking at an incantation. It's an incantation. That's, that's
Yeah,
what I love about doing what we do, and the things that you do as well, because the whole point is to try to reveal that wizard behind the curtain.
it's so
Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah. So anything else which you would like to add, Jillian, before we get off of here? And any suggestions on how people can come across your content and how they can listen further? Obviously, the Doctrine of Christ series that you're doing with David is on YouTube. And we'll put the link to that in the description. But what else do you have going on?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this so much. I can't even believe that I'm going to be able to have this come out. I'm really excited. I've been a really big follower of your page for a long time and still watch whenever I can. I'm a little bit of an early bird, so I never can quite make it through the entire midnight ride when it first airs, but I do catch up in the morning.
You did pretty
But
good tonight. You did pretty good tonight. So
yes, yes. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Again for viewing this, for listening to what we had to say. I go by Gillyan Stone on all of my platforms. I just started a YouTube. I haven't quite posted anything on it yet, but I'm getting around to it because everyone's telling me I gotta start a YouTube. So I'm gonna try to eventually. But you can follow me on Instagram. I'm always active on there. And yeah, you can follow my journey as I'm trying to expose the truth through the lens of the Bible and what the Lord has in store for me. I also always do Bible studies every morning. Right now we're going through First Kings, and you can find all those Bible studies on my page right when you click on it. So if you ever are wanting a community, ever feeling like you don't have any friends, or that you can't seem to get a Bible study in by yourself because you just don't have any time, that's why I started it, so that you can feel like you're included in a community and that you feel like you have a friend, and I'll always be your friend. So but with that being said, yeah, thank you, David, or thank you, John, so much. I'm used to saying thank you, David, um on the Doctrine of Christ. But thank you, John, so much for having me on. I just enjoyed this so much, and I can't wait to work with you in the future.
definitely we'll do it again soon. I know that, David, like tonight, he's taking a vacation. That's the first for David in a long time, but he has a lot of other broadcasts going on. And so um sometimes it's weird not having David on here, to be honest with you. So when you said David, I just automatically didn't even think anything of it. But it is weird because we've done the Midnight Ride since 2016, and probably continue to who knows how long, because it's different without him. But I appreciate you being on here, and I appreciate your willingness to put yourself out there in a way that you're not glorifying evil, and you're trying to wake people up. You're trying to just impress people's minds with the truth, or with just an option to look into other things, even just, like the short videos that you do. Most people don't understand how big of a deal they are. I don't do them yet. I've done a few here and there, and I realize that they are a big deal, and people watch them. A lot of people watch the reels, and the fact that you're being able to do and be so successful at it is amazing, because this is what people do all day long. And you can't
Well,
see what I'm doing right now, maybe, but I'm flipping through a phone, looking like I'm flipping through a phone.
that's
And
awesome.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love what I do, and sometimes, the content falls short, but I feel like whenever the Lord wants me to speak on something, I am right to recording. But yeah, I love doing what I do. I love making videos for all who are willing to listen, and it's fun to have a little community.
us older people are here on YouTube, and some of the younger people are here on YouTube, but like seems like a lot of the younger people are on TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, we are. But hey, I'll take you old or young, whatever you want. I'm your sister in Christ, and yeah, I can't wait to speak with some of you and speak with all of you. I love getting messages. I love interacting with all of my followers. It's very, very fun because I feel like I just feel like I have friends. So it's definitely fun.
Yeah, no doubt. And living, it's hard to find fellowship like that, especially when your situation. But it's amazing to have all of those people all over the United States that are truly trying to seek out God, truly trying to seek out truth, sift out things. And then I love that. And so with that being said, guys, hit subscribe button. If you have not hit subscribe yet, make sure you pound that like button, pound it very hard, and just don't bust your computer when you do it. But we're going to do it together on the count of 3. Here we go, guys.
Oh my
1,
gosh.
2, 3. Boom. Thank you guys so much for pounding that like button. Thank you, Gillyan, for joining us. And I just, as always, a pleasure. And so, guys, until next Saturday night, 10 o'clock Central, high five and good night, guys. This is the Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up.